When you hear the word debate, what comes to mind? For a lot of us, it's probably politicians shouting over each other on TV. But what if I told you there's a whole other world of debating that's less of a shouting match and more like a high-stakes intellectual sport with some really specific rules? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on British parliamentary debating, or BP as it's known. And that brings us to the big question, right? You've got 4 teams, 8 different speakers, all tackling the same topic in the same room. How on earth do you decide who actually wins? It sounds kind of chaotic, but it's a fascinating puzzle, and we are going to break it all down.
Okay, so let's get right into it. The first thing you absolutely have to understand is the format, because it's what makes BP so unique. See, this isn't just one team versus another. It's a four-way battle of wits.
So the room is split into 2 main sides. You've got the government bench, which argues for whatever the topic is, and the opposition bench, which argues against it. Simple enough. But here's the twist. Each of those benches is split into 2 completely independent teams. You've got an opening government and a closing government, and an opening and closing opposition. So while the 2 government teams are on the same side of the issue, they are also competing directly against each other for the win. It creates this wild dynamic where you're part of a team, but it's also kind of every team for itself. And this all unfolds in a very strict order. It's not a free-for-all. It starts with the prime minister from opening government, then bounces over to the leader of opposition, and zigzags back and forth all the way down the line to the final speaker. Every single one of the 8 speakers gets one shot, one speech to make their case. It's this methodical progression where each speech is supposed to build on or tear down what was said right before it. So we've got our 4 teams, and we know the speaking order. But how do they actually interact with each other during the speeches? That's where the rules of engagement come in. These are the mechanics that keep the whole thing from turning into chaos. Every speaker gets exactly 7 minutes. That's it. And crucially, the first minute and the last minute of that speech are what's called protected time. No interruptions allowed. This gives every speaker a chance to set up their arguments at the beginning and to summarize everything at the end without being thrown off their game. Okay, so what happens in those 5 minutes in the middle between the 1-minute and 6-minute marks? Well, that's prime time for points of information, or POIs. This is the main way teams can directly challenge each other. A speaker from an opposing team can stand up and offer a very short 15-second question or comment. Now, the person giving the speech has all the power. They can either accept the POI and answer it on the spot, or just wave them down and keep on going. And it is super important to get the etiquette here. A POI is meant to be like a surgical strike, not a sledgehammer. It's a formal, quick interjection. It is not a chance to start a back-and-forth conversation. And since the speaker can reject it, it's not a guaranteed interruption. The whole point is to allow for structured, direct engagement, not to just heckle or badger the person who's trying to speak. It's all about testing arguments in real time, but within a very clear set of rules. So we have the teams, the timing, the rules, but this all leads us back to that huge central question. Who is actually deciding the winner here? And the answer? Well, it all comes down to understanding who you are really talking to in that room. And here it is. This one quote is basically the philosophical heart of the entire game. Judges are explicitly told not to use their own expert knowledge or their personal opinions. Instead, they have to pretend to be a hypothetical, ordinary, intelligent voter. This is a complete game changer because it means the goal isn't to persuade the actual person judging you. The goal is to make your case so clear and compelling that a smart, regular person with no background on the topic would be convinced. It's the secret to making the judging fair. So, who is this mystery voter? Well, picture someone who keeps up with the news but isn't a professor of economics or foreign policy. They have broad knowledge but not deep, specialized knowledge. Critically, they're a total blank slate on the debate topic, no biases. They don't have a home team, so you can't win just by appealing to patriotism. They are, however, smart enough to follow a really complicated idea if you can explain it well. The whole challenge for debaters is to forget the actual judge and speak directly to this ideal, impartial mind. Right, so if that's your target audience, this ordinary, intelligent voter, then what does a winning argument actually look like? What are the building blocks of persuasion in this world? A winning case really has 2 sides that have to work together. First, you have the analysis. That's the what of your argument. It's the logic, the evidence, the core substance. It's why something is true. For instance, just saying this policy will grow the economy is a claim. The analysis is explaining the step-by-step reason how it will do that. But great analysis isn't enough on its own. It needs style. That's the how, the way you deliver it. Style isn't about using big, fancy words. It's the vehicle that carries your logic. It's about being clear, powerful, and making that complex economic idea actually matter to that intelligent voter. You can have the most brilliant idea in the world, but if you can't explain it clearly, it just won't land. So that's how a single round of debate works. But these rounds don't just happen in a vacuum. They're part of these huge, multi-day tournaments where hundreds of teams are all competing. So let's zoom out and look at the path from that one round all the way to becoming a champion. The whole journey starts with a number of preliminary rounds. In each round, teams get points based on their rank, 3 points for first place, 2 for second, and so on. After all those rounds, only the very top teams with the most points get to break to the finals. And from there, it is a brutal single-elimination knockout stage. You've got quarterfinals, semifinals, and then the grand final, where one team, out of hundreds, is finally crowned the champion. Okay, so we've looked at the teams, the rules, the judging, the whole tournament structure. When you boil it all down, what's the one core principle holding this entire intellectual sport together?
Ultimately, it's a system that is built from the ground up to reward one thing above all else: persuasion. It's about who can build the most compelling case for a neutral, intelligent, open-minded person. It's not about who's the loudest or who has the most obscure facts. It's about who can best explain why they are right. And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. In a world that's often filled with so much noise and division, what can we learn from a system where the quality of an argument is the only thing that really matters?